All right. Well, I'm going to get started here. So in this 40 Forms of Intimacy series, we've been talking about intimacy. We've used that word sometimes synonymously with sex. And my idea, my heart is to break down this word. And that's why I wrote that book, 40 Forms of Intimacy. And that's why I'm bringing some of this material to you. Because we know sometimes, if we're honest, the truth is about sex. Sometimes it can be mechanical if we think of intimacy as sex or an obligation where we do it out of pity or duty, and it doesn't include real intimacy. Sometimes it's more intimate or even more satisfying for one partner more than the other. That's very common, and that's okay. It's great. I think it's best when both partners can feel a sense of intimacy, and that always happens when we talk. We communicate about what we like, what feels good, how we feel close to each other. We reinforce all these things by ongoing communication, but sometimes we've never even had those initial conversations about what we like in sex and emotional intimacy. So I define intimacy as feeling a sense of love, safety, and connection. So in the previous webinars, I've covered several of these forms of intimacy. I've talked about communication, a little bit about commitment, and that's part of what I'm going to revisit today. I think we always have to come back to, just like communication, what does commitment mean? Because that can be a very difficult word to say and topic when we're talking about how things have happened after betrayal. So I've talked about acceptance. So if you go back, since August, there have been, I think, 4 webinars. So you can see I talked about acceptance, adventure together, definitely emotional intimacy. I talked about emotional safety, and I did 2 webinars on attunement. And I think that was so important because attunement is really bringing together communication and safety and does really build a sense of intimacy. It's us feeling connected as we live life together. So go back and look at some of those if you want some more information about that. So today I'm going to talk about these 3 forms of intimacy. Friendship. I think most of what today is about friendship and affection and commitment. So I'll touch on commitment again, but before I get into that, I want you to know I'm going to include several reflections or questions that you can ask yourself and that you can even consider bringing to your partner for communication during your check-ins. So you might have to come back and listen to this webinar on YouTube and just pause it to write down some of these questions. But if you're ready to write some of these down right now, go ahead. But there are going to be several things that I'll kind of pause and let you know, ask yourself this or consider this. But before we get into those 3 topics, friendship, affection, and commitment, I want to talk about and do a quick safety review. So I've been talking about emotional safety. That's my most recent book and how important that is to really understand how I can be a safe person. And I like to use the word approachable. Am I approachable to this person in general, maybe as a person, but am I approachable on this topic? Can my partner talk to me about this? Or is this where my partner or my kids or friends will say, I'm not going to bring that to him because I know what he's going to say. So we only share to the degree we feel safe and comfortable. And so when we think about, are we approachable? Are we a good listener? And a lot of it comes back to listening. And I know I talked about that a few times, and I'll keep talking about that because I think listening is loving. So when people can share with us comfortably and with ease, they really don't have to filter. They don't have to say, no, I better not share this. I know last time he minimized me or ignored me or did some kind of behavior that was harmful. So are we approachable? We have to ask ourselves this and think, am I hindering my partner from sharing with me? So if this is on both sides, we all have to do this, but especially after betrayal, this is on both sides. So if it's the betraying person or addict, or it's the partner who was betrayed, we have to think, am I hindering my partner from sharing with me? So that's a quick safety check. And when I honestly reflect on myself and how I come across to other people, am I being approachable? Do I listen well when my partner is talking? Do I encourage them just by nodding my head, by smiling, by giving them eye contact, that helps them continue sharing and helps them feel like they're heard? Or do I interrupt? Do I say things that might shut down a sense of safety? And of course, the conversation is going to shut that down. So anytime we desire to share more in depth and it's not happening, we're not getting deeper, we have to look at that. What is my part in this safety equation? And is there a possibility that I'm getting in the way? Sometimes we rush to fill in some of these little habits we haven't thought of, but maybe people have pointed them out to us, but often we rush to fill in silences. If there's 2 seconds, we get very nervous and we want to fill the silence. We want to talk. And it's really about our own anxiety. Is it something, are we okay with having a comfortable silence for 10 seconds even? That seems like forever when you're talking to somebody, because it seems like it should just be this smooth exchange. But are we hindering when our partner's trying to share? If they're even trying to disclose something or go deeper. So allowing a little more silence. Think about that as something you can do. I see this in therapy, some transformational moments that happen in therapy when we just slow down, we hold the space, and we let someone just have a moment of silence. They're thinking, and I think we do this at home, and we need to do this at home too. But we're giving people space to process. Space. We all don't process at the same speed or in the same way. So we're giving them space, and sometimes some amazing things will happen. Even if after 10 seconds, they're coming up with this insightful, they're articulating this new thing we've never heard because we've given them space. So think about that, how you show up to interactions. And you might be more of a processor, some quick processor, someone who can grab these words and thoughts and make them sound beautiful and release them from your mouth, and and it's flowing. And maybe with other people and environments, you can do that, and it works well. Sometimes in work situations, things are quicker pace, a lot less emotional. So at home, to really downshift, right, into a different gear and give people space, that opens the door sometimes to safety and deeper sharing, which I believe results in new levels of intimacy. That there's an even exchange. Both people have a voice. So when it comes to safety, again, I think the best thing we could do is be an approachable person. We can slow down. We are opening the door to more vulnerability and allowing and inviting the other person to be more open and safe, feel safe. And that helps us feel close. And I believe that helps us feel a sense of mutual trust. Right? That person can trust me because I'm giving them space to share, and I'm beginning to trust what they're saying because it is more, well thought out. It's deeper. So that, I think, just as a quick overview of safety, we have to keep watching ourselves. How do we approach conversations? How do we respond? Are we assuming? Are we rushing to some kind of conclusion before they've even finished their sentence? That can be frustrating for some people that, again, might need a little bit more time to process. And sometimes we just have to practice with other people, maybe at work, maybe our kids, maybe somebody else. Just really be aware of, how can I put in more pauses? How can I allow someone to share, invite them to go deeper, and just validate, and not have any solution ready to go, but just, okay, that's great. And thank you for sharing, and helping them know, if that's the main thing that they can walk away with, not that you necessarily agreed with them or liked what they were into or what they were sharing, but mostly, man, I went to him and shared, and he listened. That felt good. That felt different. So I'll do it again. It went well. So when we do that enough times with things that are somewhat on the surface, and we feel that safety, it helps us feel a little bit more confident when we need to go deeper. So again, this could be any relationship, but think primarily of an intimate relationship, with your romantic partner, your kids, anybody that you really want to go deeper with. It's checking the balance, who's sharing, how often, how fast, and are you showing up in a safe way? So I think one quick thing about safety is driving. I sometimes see this with guys and they're creating safety. I think I might have mentioned this briefly before, but it comes up often where I see guys really taking steps, and I often see guys who they have been the person who betrayed and the female partner who's been the betrayed partner. So I often use that, but they'll do so wonderful in taking these risks and creating safety, emotional safety in the session, and they're being present and they're slowing down and they're listening, and everything's just different about their tone and how they show up. And then get in the car and maybe they're driving fast, right? They're they kind of almost enter this entitled state. Like sometimes we just have to shift, and we're going to be different behind the wheel for certain reasons. But if the betrayed partner feels unsafe because you're going too fast or you're not allowing enough space between that car in front of us, all of a sudden emotional safety is out the window. So, I mean, that's maybe one practical thing to remember is, how are you helping your partner feel safe or unsafe? And it's kind of a don't shoot yourself in the foot kind of thing. If you're really working hard to build safety, think about how and when and how many ways you can just slow down in the car, at home, and that you're just being aware of and monitoring. Is this having my partner feel a little bit tense or anxious or fearful? Anytime we're doing that, we're shutting down safety, right? We're probably going to also have some kind of argument after that because they're not feeling comfortable and safe. So another quick thing with that is the difference between being efficient and effective. So, I see this sometimes a lot more with guys, it seems, is, I want to get there as fast as I can. And, this GPS says I'm going to make it there in 20 minutes. Well, you know what? I can get there in 18 minutes. Sounds like that old show. If you saw it, name that tune. I could name that song in this many notes, but it's kind of that. It might be more of that male thing, that conquering or that quest of, I can have a victory here. So, we sometimes do that, but if we think of, what, I'm going to take my time, I'm going to, be more effective and have my relationship in mind rather than be efficient. And that happens a lot with, I think, projects we might have around the house too. It's better just to do it myself. I know how to do it. I can get it done faster. And anytime we do something like that, we're maybe foregoing possibilities to connect with our partner, with our kids, with anybody, because we know how to do it right our way. But if we think and step back, it's about the experience, it's about connection. It's not always about how fast we can do it. And that helps us slow down, be more relaxed in our delivery when we're talking, but also be more present. And again, invite people to feel calmer, to show up to us in a way where they're not having to fight their nervous system and regulate themselves and calm themselves. They're feeling relaxed. So, we do a lot, I think, as we show up. And that's why I wanted to just kind of do a quick overview of safety again, because how we show up matters. And again, we can either invite or we can deny sometimes a good connecting conversation. And so we can choose to do that and start to just be more aware of that. So I wanted to get into friendship, and friendship in the book, 40 Forms of Intimacy, I define that as enjoying companionship through sharing experiences and interests and feeling mutual support, safety, and stability. So safety's right in there, right? If you think about what makes a friendship and great friends you've had, what makes that happen? What is it? It's usually they're there, right? They're present. You can count on them to be there for you. I think built into friendship, the foundation is loyalty. And after a betrayal, I mean, that's one thing that is just very much strained or non-existent, right? The loyalty I thought I had. But think about friendship, and sometimes I bring up these topics and I don't know where you are in your recovery process, if there's been betrayal and you're at the beginning of that, if you're in the middle. It seems sometimes it's hard to know when it's the middle, but are you way beyond this, where like, hey, it's still going to come up. We're still going to have triggers years later. We're still going to have difficulties. There's still going to be pain and tears at times. Hopefully after a while, it's more of like, we're overcoming this as a team, which again strengthens the friendship. But think about can you, even if you're in a tough place and maybe you're not even talking much, think about how can we still be friends? You might do friendly things. You might still be able to spend time together, but really think about this. And this might be some questions you write down, but, is your partner your friend? And if they are, you consider them a friend. How do you know that? Because you might have met and it's kind of the shared interest. I enjoy spending time with this person. I want to be with them more. That's why we got engaged and married, perhaps. But think about that friendship sometimes turns into, we always want it to be a partnership, I think, throughout, the life of our relationship. But sometimes it turns into like, okay, we're more co-parents than we are romantic partners. We're more roommates, because we had kids maybe and put our relationship, our marriage on the back burner, like, it's so easy to do. But do you maintain a good friendship, because of your similar interests, and interests change too. And you might do some things separately, and that's okay. But do you work well together as a team? And part of that is, can you count on each other to be there? I think that's the deeper thing is, I know I can go to this person. They'll be there for me. I can talk about this topic. I can share about this. And it's easy sometimes to think about all the things we can't talk about. I can't share this. I was shut down last time, or I don't want to bring this up because it's going to be triggering. So, but think about all the things that you can talk about, the things you can do together, these shared activities and things. So I've seen that when couples are rebuilding their relationship after an affair or infidelity, they're able to, at some point, it's not always easy to do the first few weeks or few months even, but we're still going to go on a hike, like this time of year and the weather's getting better and people getting outside, and we still want to go do the things we enjoy doing. And we think there doesn't have to be deep conversation. We don't have to have all these problems solved before we go on a long walk together or enjoy nature together. But think about, how can we still do these friendly things and keep that going, right? That sense of connection. And like I talked about last time, just still having fun. And we can still have fun. We can still appreciate certain things about each other and enjoy our time together and talk about that and still know we've got these big things we're working through. So that's the big part there, is knowing we're not minimizing this. We're not always saying, okay, everything's good now. Now we can hang out and, get back to what we were doing before. We're going to do this. And we need to say this sometimes out loud, right? We're going to do this. I want to go do this and have fun. And, I'm looking forward to therapy on Tuesday, right? And, I'm still struggling. If you're doing a check-in with each other, yeah, I'm still mad at you. I'm still sad today or this week or this hour, right? About what's going on. And I'm trying to still do these things with you. I'm trying to contain the pain and just put it aside for a little bit so I can just be and maybe have a little bit of fun and relaxation and connection with my partner. So we can still do those things. So think about how you can have a conversation about that. Can we still do things that friends do or things we used to do that we enjoyed and still get along while doing that? And sometimes those little events, those activities give us a little bit of hope and remind us, I do enjoy spending time with this person. Part of me says, like, I hate that person. I hate what they did to me. I hate that we're going through this. And it might seem very extreme, but you can, put an and there. And there are parts I still enjoy. There are things that we can do together that I appreciate. And again, I think that boosts our sense of hope a little bit. And we can do this as a parallel process. Like I said, we can still be working through tough things inside the therapist's office and outside, and be finding these ways to connect and talk about that together. So think about that just as friendships and kind of winding down the friendship part of this. But the next, or affection, really connects to that. It's included in that, but it's think about how you might connect and things you could bring back or new things you can try it together. Sometimes that's even better, where there's a lot of things in the past that we've done that, were good, but maybe now they're triggers. Maybe now And we don't want to do that. And as we're creating a new relationship together, maybe we want a lot of things to be new. So finding a new activity can be fun, and even having a date, a walk, something where you can plan some of these things. Just share some ideas about, I've been thinking about this. And if you can each bring 2-3 ideas, I've been thinking about that. And then agree on a few of those and get it on the calendar. And that could help you stay connected, again, as you're still working through things. So, all right. So affection, we're talking about how is this a form of intimacy? And I define this as expressions of love and caring through words, actions, and silent, which is nonverbal interactions. So we're expressing our love and caring. Sometimes it's very practical affection. So it's actions. Sometimes it's words. Sometimes we can't say the words. If we can't say I love you, we can't say I'm sorry. We can't say those things because they've kind of lost their, effectiveness. So we might have to put those on hold for a while. But the affectionate words can be just anything positive, and how you show up, the silent interactions, your presence, all of that is very important. So I think beginning with infanthood, we, as a child, we see these visual cues from people, and we read those, we experience those as, okay, that's a positive thing, right? I feel a sense of peace or safety. When you see a little baby smile, and their laugh or just something like that, they're in a state where it's joyful, and nothing bothers them. They feel secure, they feel peace, and they're going to feel loved. All their needs, very core needs, are being met relationally, and they're just enjoying themselves. So I think as we grow older, sometimes we forget to have fun, we forget to laugh, we forget to show affection, and we've just we've changed how we've done that, or we've put it on hold, or other things have affected that. So we don't do that anymore, especially with our partner. But think about where you are in your relationship. And I talked about the stages of relationships a couple of webinars ago, about when you're in the beginning, if you've discovered betrayal, if you're kind of like repositioning, you're reorienting, then you're repairing, you're trying to think about and work on, what does this mean for us as a couple? How can we be a pair? And then it's reshaping. Our relationship is going to look different, not restoring. We don't often want to bring back some of the old stuff, but we're reshaping, something brand new. So think about where you are in that. And there, you might be in a place where you don't want touch. So touch is a part of affection for a lot of people. So talking about it is the most important thing. And having those personal boundaries and just clear expectations. And often that's a gradual process for a lot of couples rebuilding as they're trying to incorporate touch. They like it maybe, and they want it back, but it's just been, so painful. So talk about what kind of touch, what levels of touch would be okay. And that shows affection. It shows love and care. It sends these signals that, I'm lovable. Sometimes it sends the signal, we receive that as, you care about me and, you like me. And sometimes we're desperate to hear that when we're rebuilding, so what type of touch would be okay? Talk about it. Our needs, our comfort levels change all the time. And, depending on what's going on as you're in therapy and working on your relationship. But think about those different levels. And maybe it starts with smiles. Smile is a sense of, it's an affection. You don't have to touch anyone. I always think you could smile and communicate a hug, right? You can hug someone with your face just by your smile, right? I'm leaning in, I'm caring for you, I'm listening to you. All of that communicates, I think similarly to what a hug can when touch is off the table or hugs are off the table. So think about smiles. Sometimes it's somebody who has betrayed somebody is desperate to see some kind of smile. If they're genuinely remorseful, they're doing the work, and some kind of smile that says, I'm proud, might communicate, I'm proud of you. I'm thankful that you're in recovery. I still love you, I still appreciate you, I'm still mad at you, and I still appreciate you. So and the caring behaviors, any practical ways you can serve each other, those types of things can be affectionate. So if that's just helping practical ways around the house, but any kind of caring, you're sick, how can I step up maybe some of the chores around the house, or bring you some soup or make meals or whatever it is. How do I care for you in practical ways? So that's affection. We can get that from our children, we can get that from our friends, but when couples show that to each other as they're working on, some of the very difficult things that are before them, that I think helps give them that sense of hope, as I mentioned. And sometimes it's sitting near each other, can be an affectionate thing. It could be, to think of stepping up, like if you just started dating for the first time and you're a teenager or something, like we're sitting next to each other, and how that feels just to be close physically. Don't need to be touching, but sitting close. And then maybe it is sitting closer where your legs are touching each other. Could be rubbing somebody's arm or back, or just some kind of soothing touch like that. Again, very non-sexual. Could be a hug, and sometimes a hug that we do is 2 seconds, and there's a lot of research around doing a 20-second hug. If you're going to do that, just give someone a heads up, because that seems really weird if you're ready to let go, 2-3 seconds and someone's holding on, you're like, okay, are we doing this? What's happening? So but a long hug can be great affection. It can really be something you've desperately needed. So of course, holding hands, that kind of thing can be helpful. Sometimes couples that do that as they're working on very tough things, if there's a trigger happening, and everything in us, if we're the person that has done the betraying behaviors, and everything in us tells us to run the other way. Our body just naturally, blood flows to our feet, is telling us, get out of here. We don't know what to do if there's any sense of fear or inadequacy. I'm not going to get it right. I don't know how to show up. So holding hands can be very difficult in those moments, but I've seen that when male betrayers go to, and of course, if the betrayed partner is open to this, they have to talk about that in advance, but they want you to hold their hands. That helps reassure them you're there, you're not going anywhere. It can be comforting. It tells you that you're in this together. So that can be very powerful affection when you need it the most, right? Other times it can be easy to hold hands, but at the time where somebody is really upset and you don't know what to say or do, sometimes our words get us in trouble. We just need to be quiet and do one of these practical, affectionate things that help. So I'm going to just finish up on commitment. I'll be brief on this, but how I define commitment, intimacy is a sense of deep security, providing constant and underlying reassurance of loyalty and faithfulness. So again, there's the loyalty there. That's one of the top friendship qualities. There's the reassurance, there's the security, and it's constant, right? It's I am showing up that I'm committed every day, right? There's everything that's giving my partner reassurance that I'm committed, that I'm in this. So sometimes we have to throw out the words vow. All these things can be very triggering, right? Our vows, if they were married, the word promise, sometimes even the word commitment, we can't use for a while. But how I'm thinking of commitment here is giving them our word that we're going to be there, that we're in this with them. We're all in as much as we can be, as much as we understand this, and that we're really trying to make this happen. So we are choosing to enter a commitment, whether we're married or in a committed relationship. I mean, that word is built into that, right? It's clear that I will be here. I'm devoted to you, and this process. And we don't always know what it looks like. Sometimes our therapist is revealing this next step as our process unfolds, as our needs change. And I think, again, within all of that, safety has to be there. But this willingness to be present, this willingness to work on things really starts to, I think, strengthen our sense of commitment, and I think we have to imagine that, come back to that as an individual. remind ourselves that, okay, he's doing this work. I could still be mad, I could still be sad, I could still have good times with him, I can still be uncertain, but I do need to remind myself, okay, he's done 5 things this week. He went to 3 meetings, and he went to therapy individually, went to a therapy group. And maybe not that much, but he's really trying, and I see that he's trying, and that helps. So I have to remind myself that he's committed to the process. He's in this. A lot of this is new to him, and he's doing it. So we might need to remind ourselves how the other person is committed based on what we see, right? A lot of that has to be the demonstrations of behavior change over time, right? It's not the words. The words aren't going to mean much. So it's what are they doing, and what are they doing consistently? And are they open? Are they teachable? Are they learning these things, as whether they're working or not? For me, because sometimes they need to go back and kind of redirect and do different things, maybe listen to different webinars and read different books and get different ideas and try those. And they're not all going to work, and depending on what stage you're in and what you need, if you're the betrayed partner. So, but the commitment is remaining true to the process. It's really remaining true to the original promise that they made in the relationship, despite the unexpected circumstances, the obstacles, these drawbacks, and what can be the worst thing and is betrayal, right? So despite all of that, the person is committed to working on things to see what this new marriage, this new relationship can look like. So so that could be some hard to do, but think about a few of these questions. Consider how your partner views your sense of commitment. Now, what demonstrates to him or her that you're fully committed? So whatever side you're on of this in betrayal, I think about, how do they know you're committed? And sometimes it's, I'm committed because I'm here. I'm still here. I haven't left. I'm committed because I'm in therapy. I'm sitting on this couch with Alex, or a therapist. I'm here. So, but how else do they know? Are there any other reasons? And sometimes that's all we can do, right? Is just show up and get the guidance that we need, because we don't all have the answers to this when we're in it. We need someone to guide us. Even therapists that go through different struggles, they need someone else to guide them. We can't see it when we're in it. It's like this cloud is over our head, and all these things that therapists know and the trainings they have, like they need someone to guide them too. So, and then for yourself, think about, do I need to renew my commitment to my partner? What does that look like? And then spiritually, sometimes, people are looking at that with God or the higher power. Like, how do I need to renew my commitment to my spirituality? And, am I trying to do this all by myself, or am I leaning on other people? And what does that look like for me right now? So my commitments to my process and to my partner, we need to be evaluating that regularly. So, and then another question, what does my partner need from me to build her or his sense of security and intimacy in our relationship? So what does my partner need from me for that person to feel a little more secure, a little bit more close and connected in our relationship? Is there something I can do? One small thing that I know would really help. So what specific words, actions from me would help my partner see that I'm all in, as much as we can define all in for where we are, and that I'm fully committed, for where we are. What does my partner need from me? So think about those questions, for yourself. I think when we're showing up a certain way, and that's all we can really control, right, is how we show up. And we're honestly evaluating and looking at what's going on and what our partner needs, what I need to do. But that really helps. So when two people are doing that, that really can strengthen their sense of hope and just give them more confidence in the process. So yeah, I think that's about mostly what I want to cover, and I'd love to hear your insights. Tammy, you always offer great ones about relationships and recovery, and I'd love to hear those, and then go into any questions that we have.
We have questions, and I have I have a question for you, because I was thinking when you were talking about the affection and express like words. And I thought, wow, that has to be really challenging because, we say your actions, not your words. And if the words have been the lies, shifting to how can I say words of affection that aren't sounding trite or disingenuous. So do you have any thoughts on like how do you even start, finding words of affection that will be helpful instead of hurtful to a betrayed partner?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think we first have to evaluate all the phrases we've said in the past that have possibly done harm. And that's an individual exercise, or we're taking those out and really have to make sure we're not going back there. We might just ask our partner. Now, if we can get in the practice of being true to ourselves of what we're feeling and what we're thinking, and then what we see about our partner, is there a compliment? Is there something we're noticing that's positive? Sometimes we notice and we appreciate it and we feel the good feelings, but we don't share it. We don't talk about it. So I would say if we could bring it to them raw, and we're going to be tentative and we have to be ready to hear that, like, nope, don't say that, or that won't work. Then that's part of what I think a partner helps them see, that you're trying, right? You're genuinely trying to say something kind. You're trying to be affectionate, but sometimes it's clunky. Sometimes we're going to mess up. And I think for the person who's really trying, especially the betraying person, to make sure that they are getting back on the horse, right? They're not just saying, well, I tried 2 times and it didn't work, or you got mad, so now I'm going to give up, right? That starts to really, decrease our sense of commitment and hope. So if we, can demonstrate that we're really trying. So think about those positive things. Sometimes we have to sit and reflect on this and think, what are these positive things about my partner that I enjoy? What do I appreciate? And what kind of affection is off the table right now that I just know? Like, I'm not going to go by and brush my hand up against her backside, or like, I'm not going to go, give her a back massage, or whatever is off the table. We have to be very clear, and then think about what our partner likes. So if he or she likes, when I rub her back, or my fingers through her hair, or, just put my hand on his leg. I mean, I know that can also feel like, okay, that's going to turn into sex, but like, we're clear about, I like you, and here's the boundary, and I'm demonstrating that, I find joy around you. I think, part of it starts as an individual reflection, and then we might have to ask, and then we might have to try, and know that's not going to work every time.
I don't know the research on the 20-second hug, but I'm thinking my husband would set Alexa as a timer, so I'm going like, I have to, or I'd be counting. So I don't know quite how, but I'm going to try that one. I also know, like, there's research, like with people who are in the hospital, of just, holding a hand, like it's calming, like there's healing to that. So human touch is really important. The paradox, you talked about the paradox of the friendship and there's lots of paradoxes in all of this work of, I can appreciate these things about you and I'm still really mad, and what you did was, like all of those things. But I think having the ability to step out and go, as friends, we're going to go for a walk, and we're not going to talk about all of the clutter and chaos in our lives. We're just going to, enjoy that. I really think it's key to find new things to do that aren't tarnished by any, clouds of, all of the stuff that's happened. When you talked about how can we be a pair, I think that's such a great question to consider, of like all of this stuff has happened, and I really appreciate it. You're talking about being committed to the process. You don't even have to be committed to the person, like just backing it up and going, I'm committed to the process. I'm going to see how this all happens. We talk often about putting a relationship in a safe harbor, so that the pressure is really off both people, because it's hard for a betrayed partner to go, should I stay or should I go? Well, it's just so new and raw and everything, so putting it in safe harbor, and that gives both people space to to get input from other people, therapists, qualified peers, that, to help see, and also the actions like you're talking about with the betrayer showing up differently with action. So, I think that's, a key to all of this too. And what does my partner need from me? Like, so much of what you're talking about, I was like, this is really ask the other person, like having those communication that we all suck at, I mean, that's why we get into all of this problem area. So how do we go really brave and go, Alex, what do you need from me? And be willing to hear, and take it in without, having an emotional meltdown, and even saying, this is going to be really difficult for me, but I'm going to be willing to be vulnerable, and I'm going to ask you this because I care, and I'm trying, like even prefacing it with all of that, then you get to the question. But all of this is like, how do we communicate? What can we find as a pair? How can we be friends? How can I show you affection? What do I need, from you to show me affection? All of those things, are, it's new and different, but man, like building a relationship and building it on a new foundation, is so different and so much. It's worth the effort to do the construction, right? As guess I use a construction analogy.
Yeah, and starting over, right? We need to have a new foundation, and it's not necessarily remodeling the house, right? We need to
Right.
level this house and start a new foundation. And asking, like you're saying, it helps our partner see that we are trying and we want to get it right, and we're trying to tune into that person's needs. But prefacing it, this is hard to say. I really want to meet your need here. What would help you in this moment? Sometimes we think big and overall, what's going to help you feel safe and connected. And sometimes we just need to slice it down thinner to what's going to help you right now, or in these types of situations, what can I do? What would help? And instead of thinking, what are these big steps we have to take? Because then we're kind of met with that question and we don't know, like we need time to process that and to give a good answer.
Okay, we have questions. So how do we rebuild trust when separated? I filed for legal separation. He thinks, this is the betrayer, he's done recovery work by admitting he used porn and sin that goes with it. He only wants to work with our church, who is not abuse trauma informed. I see he refuses to do real recovery work. He wants me to drop legal stuff so we don't have attorney fees. He says, and that's key, he says he wants to work on our marriage, but he's ignoring his work. What do you advise?
Yeah, it's depending on what's happened, there are different levels of care that people need. And often after betrayal, it could be, even if it's a one-time affair, and I certainly don't want to minimize that, but if it's a one-time affair, or if it's porn use for a short time or a long time, or it's repeated, sexual addictive things that have happened, that we have to think about what level of care is needed. Often it is clinical work that is going to really do the repair. So, when you're in a position of he's not going to do that, that's sometimes where we have to set boundaries and expectations, and like, I need you to get help because I'm going to keep getting hurt by this, and you can't stop obviously on your own. If there are slips and relapses, there's going to be a greater level of care needed. There is, and there's a thing called a pastoral sex addiction professional, PSAP. So ITAP trains some pastors. I'm on faculty,
but they are not mental health professionals. That's the challenge. So yeah,
most of them are not. So they can be wonderful gatekeepers, and they have a lot of insight into what is happening and what might be needed, of how they can support you spiritually. So they are a great part of the process as a support person that can consult with the therapist. So there has to be the therapist there.
Thank you.
And they'll help with that. So if you want to integrate that faith component, if he needs that and would appreciate, someone in his church, if feels more comfortable with, that could be and a supplement to treatment. But treatment is, again, really people that are skilled, they're trained. I mean, they have master's degree, they've been in school, 2 to 10 years and plus certifications. And this is a very specialized area. So that, probably, that needs to happen. And it's just maybe you starting to say, I need this. This is what I need in order to feel safe, in order for us to rebuild trust. So that's part of your question, is how do we rebuild trust when separated? So if you're think of the other 40 forms of intimacy, like communication, and one of them is trust, one of them is honesty, one of them is respect. And I saw another question that's somewhat similar, I think, here toward the end. But so same thing, if you're separated, start there. Right. And you might be able to, if you want to spend time together, still date each other. So just that could be going out for a walk, just keeping some kind of connection alive. And sometimes that's once a week for people. That's all they do if they're physically separated. But keeping something going so you both know what's happening in each other's lives, especially if you have children and you're trying to rebuild, is very important. There's such a thing called a therapeutic separation or a healing separation. And that means we are both actively working on things. We're in therapy. We have boundaries around touch, around time together. We're definitely working on the relationship. It's not just we're separated, living our individual lives and getting too comfortable with that. It's more of we're working on this. So if you look up that therapeutic separation, that could be something, if you're working with a therapist, hopefully you are, that they can guide you in that, or give you something that gives you a little bit more hope and strength in the process, just knowing that you're doing your part to stay safe. And you have needs, you have things that have to be in place in order for you guys to take the next step, and hopefully he can do that, but you definitely have to work on what you can control within this.
And I was thinking healthy boundaries for you, sister, because this is a person. I read manipulation. Oh, we can save legal fees if we stop the legal process. So all I read is he's not willing to do the work. You can't rebuild trust by yourself. He's the betrayer. So, this is absolutely in his hands to do actions that you've asked for. But it's like, I see he refuses to do real recovery work. That to me is the answer. He refuses to do recovery work that would help you build safety and trust. So I'm in the bill, hold your safe boundaries for you, because that just feels unsafe.
Yeah, and those boundaries are sometimes called non-negotiables. You can look that up if you haven't heard of that, but those are, I can stay in the relationship as long as, right? You can stay in this house as long as this is happening. So it can sound to the other person as almost like a power move or an ultimatum. And essentially it's a critical need. It's a non-negotiable boundary that you need to keep going, to take the next step to keep the relationship together. So that if you're doing your part, it's okay to say what you need. You definitely need to declare those boundaries and enforce them.
So the next question, how can we start to build connection if there's not a sense of safety? My addicted partner keeps expecting me to put the effort in first to make him believe that I want the relationship. I don't know if I do, and he's using it against me. He is choosing to exclude me from his support network and recovery plan. I don't feel safe with him. I have not seen any action showing kindness, accountability, or a desire to reconcile.
Yeah, I'm so sorry to hear what, everyone who's asking these good questions, what you're all going through. It's sad that, you're on this other side of this and you don't have a say in things. So I know some people, the addicted partner, if they feel like a partner is driving their recovery, that they're making all the decisions or demands, they're going to often, rebel against that or shut that down. And I've seen the addicted partners that are willing and open to involve some insight or hear those recommendations, that it really goes much better. If they're driving their own recovery, I think that's best, because they need to be doing it for themselves, so they, have the right approach. They have the right heart in the process, but I think that needs to be part of what usually heals couples, is openness, right? Of here's what I'm doing, here's what's happening. They don't always have to share details, especially with different groups. There's confidentiality, but it's here's what I'm getting from the group. So you might be able to ask that. I would start to feel more safe with you if you told me, in summary, what you guys worked on, and you initiate the process. So I don't have to chase you down and ask questions, but you can say, hey, tonight we went over this in the workbook or had this discussion about this topic, and here's what I got from it. Here's how I think it affects me. And that could be 2 minutes of sharing. And then the recovery plan is important. I'm sorry that he's choosing to exclude you, you say, from his recovery plan. And that's what you need for safety. So it's okay to keep requesting and requiring some of these things, right? The accountability that needs to be in place. If the person is addicted, they need accountability. You don't have to be, and sometimes a partner shouldn't be the primary accountability person. Like it's all the updates or the emails of if someone's looking at a suspicious site, but the accountability has to be there, and the desire to reconcile that part too. It sounds like you're seeing some very clear signs of an attitude of, I'm going to do what I'm going to do. I'm not kind about it. I'm not accountable. I'm doing what I'm doing. So of course that's not going to have you feel safe that anything's going to change. So I think just making sure that you're caring for yourself well, that you're staying safe. Like you said, you're worried about something's being used against you. Think about like what you can do and that you need to feel safe right now. You can still put these needs, these non-negotiable boundaries out there and say, I need this and I need to know what you're doing. If I don't know that you're doing anything different, all I could do is expect things will be the same. And I can't stick around for that. So, sometimes that again might need to be clearly communicated, and even, and hopefully with a therapist, if there's, a couples therapist that you can start seeing too.
Yeah. And I'm not sure you're ready for couples therapy if he's acting like that. I don't know, not
Yeah,
sure. So I got a
right.
bunch of ideas for you, and I'm going to whip them off real quickly, but email me, Tammy, TAMI at Seeking Integrity. Thanos check-in, Alex talked about a check-in. Well, there's a check-in for each of you, and that can help be a point of communication. I hear a fear from him, and I'm not saying it's justified, or I'm saying it feels like he's leaning into the fear. Well, you might leave me, so I'm not going to lean into you. Not okay. But I'm picking up on that. Dr. Rob does a one-time 2-hour expert consultation with couples that are stuck. It's often helpful, to guide each and both of you, into what next. And we have the couples healing from betrayal work group that starts April 13th. We only offer that one. It's online. Dr. Susie LeBrock does it. It's 2 hours a night for 6 weeks. She does a great job. We only offer that one twice a year. So that also could be helpful because it talks about communicating, grieving losses together. I mean, it's a lot of solid content. So email me if you want some more information, but we've got more questions. And that was my rattle off version. Okay, next question. I chose to stop couples therapy because my addict partner is constantly blaming me, even during sessions, and he is not respecting when the therapist intervenes, disregards her advice, Google searches to fact check. Wow. I said I will not return, or I will return when he can allow me to speak for myself and not yell at me. He is issuing ultimatums about ending the marriage if I don't return by the end of the month, and that he doesn't want to talk unless in therapy because he now doesn't feel safe with me. I don't feel ready. Help. Wow.
Yeah, I think, like Tammy, you're mentioning about the readiness of couples therapy. I mean, there needs to be sobriety, there needs to be safety, some sense of that. And sometimes the safety is created first in the couples therapist office, but making sure that both partners are not attacking each other, or it's a tough process to go through as a couple, and knowing that you feel safe or unsafe with a couples therapist, you might need to talk to that person if you're able to. You said you chose to stop couples therapy. That's good. If you were going to get help and it feels like, okay, this is making it worse, yeah, we need to take that, take a step back from that. Talk to the couples therapist if you haven't already about what's happening and what to expect. And sometimes even knowing that and their level of training, and think of like, what are they seeing? If they're able to share that with you, that can help you feel a bit more validated about things. Seeing the ultimatums. And so that's a lot of pressure, a lot of control about ending the marriage. If you don't return by the end of the month, you need safety. You need some sense of safety, something to hang on to that will help you take a step in that direction. So that could be something that you request, right? Is that need? I need this to happen in order to do that. And I don't know if it's going to happen or he'll change his mind, but you need to feel safe and making sure that you have individual therapists and support and resources is really important, because there's a lot that's out of your control right now. There's a lot that's very hurtful in making this worse. So making sure you're caring for yourself well is very important.
Yeah, this feels like he's completely bullying and steamrolling even with the therapist. So
Mm.
to me, it's like this person is, he may have stopped the acting out behavior, and I still be a little skeptical about that, but this is not a person in recovery, because in recovery, we do life differently. We're doing the scary stuff of like, I'm going to listen to what you need, not just bully over. So this is a person that we have a treatment program for. But I guess I would be like, if he's issuing this ultimatum, is that like, I would get support for you to look at, is this a relationship that you see potential, that like a year from now, if he's still acting like this, and is that a good safe place for you to be in? So I really encourage you to get personal support, and I'm not a fan of having, I mean, the coupleship is the client with a couples therapist. So you having your own support person, that can help you process through that. But again, like Alex said, I think that therapist knows you and has seen this dynamic. So if they're trained to work in this specific area, that might be somebody to at least schedule, a session with, to figure that out. But that just, it's a lot of bullying and manipulation. Okay, my spouse says his addiction is past. Oh my gosh, I should forgive and move on. I have tried. When he doesn't get sex the way he wants, as often as he wants, we have sex every 6 to 8 weeks. I am denying his basic needs and cutting him off. He is judgmental of the sex we have. He sees no reason to be accountable to me if he isn't getting it, and our entire marriage is thrown out. I am to blame. I am, like, this breaks my heart. Dr. Rob talks all the time. Nothing you did or didn't do, caused this. I have been in recovery. And do you hear me clearly? I am in recovery, and I have been for decades. I never say my addiction is in my past. My addiction is waiting right here. I will never use recovered. So this makes desire even less. How do I get him to understand without trust? It is hard. I help.
Yeah. Wow. So I mean, again, it sounds like it's controlling and demanding. And I always think, what gets in the way of sex? What helps make it easier for either of you to have sex? Desire is different. Sometimes arousal, sometimes if you're safe and you want that or don't want that, some type of arousal helps desire. Desire doesn't always have to come first, but obviously there's a very, you're different in the frequency and that, I think when sex is mutually satisfying and you can talk about what you each like and don't like, it's easy to make it mutually pleasurable, right? Ongoing, and it'll be something that a couple comes back to. But when it seems like it's one-sided and it feels forced and it's out of duty and obligation and it's out of coercion, you're not going to enjoy it, first of all. And it's going to feel, it can feel like rape sometimes, right? If when couples, are not on the same page with that and it feels forced. So again, you're not to blame for his desire, for his needs. Sometimes when people say it's my basic need, I think of like, food, water, sleep as basic needs, and security, and beyond that is sex. We're not going to die if we don't have sex. So it can feel sometimes like if somebody's withholding, like it's manipulation, or he has to do all these things to earn sex. I mean, there's a lot, of course, wrapped into this, but there has to be the accountability to safety and trust, like you're saying. I need to feel like I can trust you, and wherever trust is harmed or broken in this way, and every time there's pressure, it probably violates the trust because you're needing to put your guard up. So all this, like the minimizing, you should forgive, that was the past. I would say going to be very, very difficult, for someone to just say, oh, that was then, that was the old me. Somebody that's accountable, somebody that is owning up to behaviors and the impact on you from those behaviors, is someone that is going to say, I'm still working on this. I know I still need help. I'm getting better than my old self, but I know I still need help. And there is no should forgive, right? Forgiveness is a whole process in itself. Like you said, you've tried. So if a lot of it comes back to his high need for sex, I mean, that does certainly sounds like a sex addiction. And that's one of the core negative beliefs of a sex addict, right? Is sex is my most important need. That's one of Patrick Carnes' core beliefs. It's been out for probably 30 years. That's what people will say. So again, your boundaries, your safety, your self-care, very important, because there needs to be someone to intervene. I don't know if therapy, if he's in therapy or what's happening, but you definitely need to continue getting care for yourself.
So there's a betrayed partner drop-in group today at 12:30 Pacific time. There's another one tomorrow morning at 8:30 in the morning. I highly encourage you to participate. There's a betrayed partner work group starting later this month, 6-week online course, Angela Spearman, and it talks about healthy boundaries. But yeah, that is, I'm with Alex. That is not he will have nocturnal emissions if he needs it. And I'm kind of wondering why his basic needs, get to steamroll over your basic needs for safety. So
Yeah,
we have 2 more
exactly.
questions. So hopefully you can, 3. Okay. And we have to stop the questions because we're out of time, but I want to get to these if you can hang in there, Alex.
Sure.
My healed PA spouse thinks no matter what is going on or how I feel, we should have quality sex at least once a month. I have asked for space and not to be pushed. I am supposed to forget the past and move on. I cannot, as long as I feel if I had had a higher, as long as I feel if I had had a higher sex drive, his need could be met. I feel obligated and judged as if I'm not being a godly wife. There's no security or intimacy on my part. Am I wrong to deny him when I don't desire him? How can I be the person he sees me as? Again, Dr. Rob said, there's nothing you did or didn't do that caused this. It isn't about your sex drive. He has broken your trust. So and it's challenging when it gets changed into a religious, you have to do this to serve me type of thing. That is not a partnership or mutually, like it's we have a spiritual abuse work group for men. We may need to start one for women too, but we have a spiritual abuse work group starting because so much has been tied up in hurtful things get said in the context of religion. And having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps, I have my spiritual awakening. It is key to my being, but I hate when things get manipulated. So Alex, I'll shut up. Sorry.
No, it's right on. I mean, we can't use scripture, we can't use religious principles against somebody. And I always think of when people use that, it's look back, what is the husband supposed to do for the wife? And if it's the Christian scripture that it is, they're supposed to love their wives as Christ loved the church. So how is he loving you in safety? Like you said, there's no security or intimacy. That's going to kill your desire for him because you're protecting yourself so much. How can you want to go toward him? So can think of these steps, these things that are in the way of you wanting to be with him, sexually or non-sexually. What are those things that you need in order to take one step toward him? And can you communicate those to him? Like, this is what I need. These are the blocks. This is why I can't have Like he said, quality sex at least once a month. This is why, because when you do this or you blame me or you hurt me, that's emotionally damaging me and I cannot show up for you. So it's putting the responsibility back on him.
So the next question is, what are some ways we can build intimacy during separation, or should that be tabled until later? No, personally living as a couple hours away. It sounds like they're talking about sexual intimacy, but remember, Alex wrote a book about 40 forms of intimacy, so it isn't just sex. So
right. And think about what I was sharing a little earlier, the affection. Think about what steps you guys can take. If you're getting together more often or you're meeting at places, think of non-sexual intimacy first, through communication and really respect all those things that help you feel like you're safe, that you're connected, that you're seen, that you're valued. And when you take steps toward physical or sexual intimacy, talk about it. And that's sometimes things we don't do. So when there's a separation, talk about what kind of affection or touch you like, and create something brand new. So it can be difficult if you're living a couple hours apart, but if you can't get together more often, think about how to talk about as if you're dating for the first time, long distance, and think about like, what do you like? What do you not like? What do you want to be different? And have conversations about it. The conversations can be, one of the most intimate things you can have. And it really informs intimacy, especially when you're talking about sex.
So I'm going to shorten the next one. This couple is they've been doing some work. They are in a bad shame, blame, criticism, and rage cycle. And then I have regression due to childhood wounds and trauma, doing some work on that. But it's like, we go back and forth with the pursuer, distancer dynamic as I get hurt. Any suggestion? Timeouts are tough as she feels abandoned, even if I give specific timeline.
Sorry, trying to read here. There are a lot of pieces to this.
Yeah, so they're doing, their CNC said they're doing lots of stuff, but this is this is the question. So
right. Yeah, I think continuing to do things that bring safety, that bring her, you're meeting her needs, right? Think of those specific needs that you have. If there's a cycle, what part can you do? You said we're in a bad shame, blame, criticism, and rage cycle from her to me. You also have to be safe, right? If you have to do things and share things that you need, not to have power over her, but to make sure that you're doing things that are keeping you safe and that you're not perpetuating the cycle in any way, right? So you can stay calm, you can set boundaries and say like, it's hard for me to stay in the conversation when if you're yelling at me or if you're raging like that. I want to talk about this, but I can't. You guys both know there are deep and very difficult, complex elements going on with childhood wounding and trauma and EMDR. Like it's difficult when you're going through some of that deep trauma work because it's so emotionally exhausting and there's so much being kind of brought up, probably that some things have to be put on hold for a little bit. So it might be that you take a step back and you can talk about even the timeouts. I shared, make sure you guys are both following the guidelines. I shared in a previous webinar here about steps for taking a break. So there are 7 steps, making sure you guys follow those same guidelines so she can be reassured and not feel abandoned. Oh, we're coming back. Like you said, you give a specific timeline, but what are you doing to help her feel safe in the meantime? There sometimes needs to be that space to calm our nervous systems and that. So I hope she's continuing to get support as well. Think about what you can do to, not that you're going to be blameless, not that you're going to mess up sometimes, but how can I be super sensitive to what she needs and do my work and still, set the boundaries that you might need to. Those might actually help her if you're trying to communicate in a healthier way. But definitely, I don't know if you guys have seen a couples therapist, but it could be if you're in recovery, it's been 3 years, think about that. If you can get in to see a trained couples therapist, I'm sorry, you do have that. Think of an intensive. An intensive might even help with that. It gets you to a place faster if you guys are ready for that, but some kind of intensives with people that are trained in this might be another level of care that could, burst you guys out of this cycle.
Yeah. And I mentioned Dr. Rob does a 1-time 2-hour expert consultation when couples are stuck. He is, I mean, it's kind of one of his superpowers of helping couples figure out where they're at and how to move forward. So that's the Couples Healing from Betrayal work group starts April 13th. Attachment wounds, like I hear attachment wounds all over the place for you, and Troy Love does an online work group for that. Inner child, like all of those things, but this is a process. And Eddie Caparucci did a really good webinar, and I'll lose track of the time, but he talked about being able to withstand the emotional discomfort, and like at some point we have to just go, it's going to be uncomfortable. And it's like I mentioned it earlier, this is going to be uncomfortable. I'm going to want to run away, but I'm going to sit here and I want to talk about this, but having it be constructive, like we're going to spend 20 minutes, not this whole pursuer thing that gets to be, crazy making for both of you, then, and it's 24/7. If it's like at 7 o'clock, we're going to sit down, we have 20 minutes, we will have journaled whatever it is that we need to talk about. Good. And hopefully, there's some good things. The Fanos check-in, 2 minutes, each of you, do that every day, do it a couple times a week, whatever. Like there's so many different ways to bridge the gap. But continuing in that cycle, I call it the negative 2-step, this like country line dancing, but it's the negative 2-step. You keep repeating these patterns and nothing changes. I say this all the time for people considering treatment. Nothing changes if nothing changes. So somebody's got to be willing to tolerate the uncomfortable and do something different. Otherwise, decades later, you guys can be doing the same negative 2-step. So we are way beyond time. Alex, I am so grateful for your insight, input, your books. I put them in the chat. Hopefully you guys, click onto those, and we'll see Alex again in May, and good luck at the conference.
All right. Thank you, Tammy. Have a great day.
Bye, everybody.